Somewhere in the mountains of northeast Italy, a farmer can't wake his wife. She's breathing, she's warm, but she's gone. Her spirit out in the dark fields, armed with a bundle of fennel stalks, fighting invisible witches for the survival of next season's harvest. She's not a witch. She's a Benandanti, a good walker. And she knows exactly what she is, because she was born that way. Born wrapped in a caul, marked before she ever drew her first breath. The church did not know what to do with her. The Inquisition had a word for women who flew out at night: witch. But she wasn't that, and she would tell them so, over and over, for decades, until finally, under enough pressure, enough interrogation, enough isolation, she started to believe them instead. This is the story of the Benandanti, and it is one of the strangest, saddest, and most beautiful things ever found between myth and belief.
There are fae and cryptid, lores and legends, of which there are skeptics and cynics of all kinds. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth.
And we are between the myth and belief.
You're going to have a lot of fun with this one because I am going to mispronounce so much idly.
I really don't know how to necessarily pronounce Italian words. I just know the Italian words I know.
0.06%.
I am less Italian than I was led to believe when I was being raised in an Italian family.
This is true.
By people with a lot more Italian blood than mine, but apparently it diluted itself fast when it...
The good news is I think you're adopted.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
I mean, I am taller than everybody in my family, except for my Nana and my dad.
Yeah.
But everybody else is pretty short. Oh, no, I got a tall uncle too. But everybody else is short.
Maybe you just take after him from somebody else's side.
I mean, I probably take after my dad's side. Unfortunately. If you're listening, fuck you.
Oh my God, you've got issues.
Yeah, you met me, right? You know me?
He died years ago.
Fake
So he
death.
told you.
It was a fake death. Yes, my father faked his death. Well, he didn't really fake his death. He just told everybody he was dead.
That is faking your death. That's pretty much how you do it. You tell everybody you die.
I mean,
you usually don't go person to person and tell them personally.
No. His wife did. Not
So
my mother.
weird.
Not
Such
my mother.
Bad con artist.
I know.
So
I have a lot of information. Okay.
Upcoming events?
Yes, lots of upcoming events.
Nice.
Okay. And I'm trying to do around the world. And so
how many days?
For about a week. From the 17th until the 24th.
That was a movie joke, but that's still funny.
I know. So we have the Penhurst Paracon and Oddities, which is an expo on May 16th and 17th. So if you're listening to this today, you got to get there quickly because it's going to be over. But this is really, really cool. The city of Springfield, I'm sorry, that was wrong. It's Spring City, Pennsylvania, is hosting a haunted Penhurst asylum, and you're going to go there, and it's going to have celebrity investigators from Ghost Hunters and Project Fear. There's going to be vendors, historical tours. We will provide links for the ones that have links available. Honestly, it sounds like a blast.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So in Texas is Texas Frightmare Weekend on May 22nd through the 24th, and that's in Irving, Texas, which is a major horror and paranormal convention featuring dark arts film guests and macabre collectibles.
Oh, okay. Have you been to Irving?
No.
I have. It's actually a nice little city. So.
Okay. In Plymouth, Minnesota, we have Quantum Con 4, which will be ending today.
Okay, well, that does
Unfortunately,
no
it's the
good.
15th to the 17th. So
You just missed it.
I'm sorry. If you're here listening to us late in the day, you did miss this one. But next year, keep in mind, it's a convention focusing on the paranormal, supernatural occurrences in the Midwest, and technical ghost hunting.
So hopefully it'll recur.
Yes.
You'll see it next year.
So then we have the Sussex Fairy Festival, which is also ending on today. It's in Polegate, East Sussex. It's held in Alfriston, and it is a festival which features folklore, shamanic journeys, and shamanic. I knew I was saying it wrong. And mystical workshops.
Okay.
There's the Rites of Spring, which is May 20th through the 25th in Western Massachusetts. That's all it says. And it's online as well. It's a long-running weekend pagan festival and gathering focused on honoring the sacred earth through ritual and community. And then there are some historic holidays that are coming up and observances, which I am going to butcher the shit out of, and I'm really, really sorry about that. Inti Raymi Preparation and Cusco Jubilee in Cusco, Peru. It marks the month of Cusco, where Andean spiritual groups hold sun greeting rituals leading up to the winter solstice, which is May 17th through the 24th. There is the Glastonbury Witches Market is also happening. It goes from April until September. So you guys have a lot to do there. We have on the 17th, which is the Maple Ceremony, which I am not going to butcher this indigenous name, but it is a traditional indigenous observation honoring the maple tree as a symbol of renewal and the first gift of the year from the earth. And that is today. On the 19th, we have the Festival of Adonia, a somber private festival primarily observed by women to mourn the death of Adonis, the consort of Aphrodite. So obviously this takes place in Greece. It typically involves planting gardens of Adonis, which is quick blooming herbs that later are cast into the sea or a spring. There is in the Norse beliefs, we have on May 20th, Frigga and Blot, a fest dedicated to Frigga, the All-Mother, Queen of Asgard. On the 23rd, we have Vulcania, which is the Roman Vulcan, and it is basically a holiday dedicated to Vulcan.
Okay.
And we have some celestial events. This from the 24th through the 17th through the 24th, my bad, is the waxing moon. And we have a full bloom moon on the 31st. And the sun is going to enter Gemini on May 20th. And I do have a couple more. Like we have the International Selkie Day, which is a Celtic and Norse mythology, the Selkies. That's on the 22nd. On the 24th, we have the Feast of Sekhmet in ancient Egyptian.
Okay. So we can put those links up in the show notes, and and we'll put the list of these items.
Yes.
So that you can look through them and hurriedly rush out your door for the day of.
Sorry about that.
I mean, it is, the spring, so there are going to be a lot of events.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're talking about the Benandanti. This is one of the topics that sits right at the intersection of everything this show is about. Documented history, folk belief, the supernatural, and institutional power. The Benandanti is plural. So that you have the Benandant and then you have the Benandanti, I guess.
Okay.
And so there's more than one.
Okay.
And it's in the Friuli region of northeastern Italy. Please excuse the fact that I'm about to butcher all the Italian words. But the story it was almost completely lost, first of all. It survived simply because an Italian historian named Carlo Ginzburg happened to open the right archive box in the 1960s. And what he found inside those centuries-old trial records shocked the academic world. And honestly, I think it should shock you as well. Here's the very short version before we get deeply into this. There are a group of people, men and women, farmers, healers, all that, who believe that they left their bodies in spirit form 4 times a year to fight witches in the fields.
Okay.
So they were fighting us, I guess. Just fighting witches.
In their sleep.
They believed they were protecting their community, and they believed they were doing God's work.
Mm-hmm.
And the church eventually ground that belief out of them until they confessed to being the very thing they had always opposed, which I think you'll find in a lot of cases they probably were.
Yes.
But not because the church said it, but just because that's what they were.
Yeah. Because you can be a natural born witch and not really understand what you are. And if you don't, and you oppose, if it goes against your belief that you were raised with, I could see how that could cause you to think that you're not a witch and fight witches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to understand the Benandanti, you have to understand where they came from, which, we talked about the Friuli area in Italy, which is the northeastern corner. Mm-hmm. It's bordered by the Alps to the north and the Adriatic Sea to the south, and Slovenia to the east, and the Veneto, right?
Yeah. I'd have to see it written.
To the west. It's a region that's been passed between empires, nations, languages so many times that it's really become its own culture. Mm-hmm. It's very distinct, and it's got its own dialect and a very peculiar way of blending Christian observance with their older beliefs. That sound familiar at all?
Very, very.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot like Appalachian magic. That's what I'm saying. When people say they're not witches, and I think a lot of times they're just mixing what it means to be a witch with the things they think are bad.
Yeah, and I think it goes to that whole, this is what I was raised to believe, but also these are the things I know how to do. And these are the things that were passed down to me, and sometimes it's a little bit witchy.
Yeah, so we're talking about, like the 16th or 17th centuries. This is rural, agricultural Italy. Not the Florence of the Medici or Rome with its grandeur. It's these farms and small villages. It's the petrichor of Italy. It's the smell of soil after a rain. Mm-hmm. That's what this is about. The rhythms of life here are the rhythms of the harvest. They're the planting, growing, the praying that the crops would survive. That is what you get.
Oh, yeah.
That is what happens pretty much everywhere that develops this deeply seated religious following. Mm-hmm. The Appalachians had it. Many regions have it. You pray for a harvest because you feel powerless otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
The economy was almost certainly agrarian. I mean, there's no way it wasn't. A failed harvest wasn't a financial setback. It was starvation. That's what was going to happen. It was life or death. So when the people of Friuli believed that there were invisible forces threatening their crops, it wasn't just superstition for the sake of superstition. It was an attempt to explain and control something that could literally kill you, and everyone you loved. So can you imagine the pressures that they had to make sure those crops survived? Oh, yeah. And in light of not having direct control, you create direct control.
Yeah.
Even if you don't believe in, let's say, the supernatural portion of this, even if you don't believe in that, you have to believe that people had to find a way to feel better about their situation, and that the false security of control was better than having no hope at all.
I know, I agree with that. Because you want to have that kind of, you have to believe in something. People believe in something. And whether it is themselves or it is something supernatural, but we all have to have something. It's a focus. It's what keeps us going.
Right.
And so whether they're believing in Christianity or, Ra the brick god of the Masonites, it's something. And it's the focus to, is And then if there is a failed crop, they won't have to blame themselves, or they,
It's the fates.
Yes.
It's we didn't pray hard enough.
Yeah, and it goes like with the whole, explaining the unexplainable with, the Greek mythology, and how every god represents something that they can't explain naturally. So if something does go wrong, we can blame, a Demeter, or Persephone.
You have a direction to go, other than nothing at all, and then you don't have a reason for why the things failed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that. But, Friuli is a crossroads. We have to remember that Latin, Slavic, German traditions all kind of like met and then like mixed up there.
Yeah.
So that cultural overlap is going to really matter later on when we talk about where the Benandanti tradition may have actually come from. Because I'm telling you, the deeper we go into this, the older it gets.
Okay.
So it's like layers of earth. The further down you go, the older the skeletons. So, that's what we're going to find out is who were these people.
It's like turtles all the way down.
Turtles all the way down, exactly. So the word Benandanti comes from Italian, obviously. It comes from bene, which means good, and adare, and again, I'm going to murder these, means to go. So good walkers are good goers. Their enemies, the witches they fought, are the maledante, the bad walkers, the evil goers.
That makes sense because Bella is good, Bella.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful too, and then also
Benna, but yeah.
Yeah, Benna, sorry, not Bella. Benna. So Benna is beneficial. You see that in English language. And then with the the maledictus, whatever it is, the freaking
Maledante. Yeah.
Well, no. I was thinking of the book that Cotton Mathers used for the witch trials.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, was it Malleus Maleficarum or something like that?
We'll actually get into that.
Okay.
So already in the name, there's this moral clarity. So there's the good side and the bad side. This is a lot like, Jedi and Sith. They were not confused about what they were. They had a word for themselves that they chose.
Mm-hmm.
So they literally kind of deputized themselves as a supernatural sheriff.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think of it. They just kind of put on some spurs and little badge, and they went, I'm going to go fight in the spirit world.
Okay. I mean, sure. That kind of goes along with my episode about the dreams.
Hey, dog, you see the size of that chicken? I can't help it. That's still stuck in my head all these years later.
Look at all them chickens.
It's coming from a movie, and I guess we'll talk about it in the movie podcast. So the Benandanti were members of folk tradition found across Friuli. Sorry, I keep murdering it. Particularly the eastern part. Both men and women could be Benandanti, though the roles appear to have differed somewhat, obviously, as we'll get into. What made someone Benandanti wasn't a choice. It was actually a birthmark. Specifically, it was being born with the caul. The caul, also called the amniotic veil or the shirt, is a portion of the birth membrane, the amniotic sac that occasionally remains over the baby's head when it's born. It's rare, and we're talking like fewer than like 1 in 80,000 births.
Okay.
It peels away very easily and it's harmless, but throughout human history and across dozens of cultures, it's treated as a profound sign. In Friuli specifically, being born with the caul meant that you were destined to become a Benandanti.
Okay.
It wasn't optional at all. You didn't get a choice in that. An angel, or in some accounts, simply a force, would call you into service around the time you came of age. Witnesses in the trial records describe receiving a summons, like being called out of their sleeping body to join the other good walkers. And the caul itself was often kept. So one Benandanti named Paolo Ginzburg One of the very first to be tried said his mother had given him the call and that he had had 9 masses celebrated over it to strengthen it. Another, Battista Buduco, carried his call with him at all times.
Ew.
It was believed that the call had protective power, shielding soldiers from injury and helping lawyers win cases, warding off evil. It was like the seed of something. It was just like the all-around Bezor of things.
So
you know?
they were literally carrying around their amniotic sac.
Some were carrying the caul, which is
The caul,
piece
pieces
that
of it,
stayed on
yeah.
the head. Yeah.
That
I mean, it had obviously dried up, so it was probably very small.
very, very brittle, and
It was like a shrinky dink of holiness.
but even dried up, it's
Sure.
I can't even.
I mean, it is what it is. I've seen like different cultures keep fingers,
Yeah.
keep the bones of their ancestors. This isn't really that different.
You're keeping your amniotic membrane.
I don't
Part of
really
it.
I don't really have an issue with that at all. I don't find any.
No, okay. Side note, I grew up again with Italian peoples. And I'm not saying Italians. I'm talking about like American Italians.
So visitors.
Yes, visitors, like people who
Tourists.
Yeah, American Italians and legitimate Italians are two different creatures. And I'm not kidding you. I mean, you're both in my heart, but also American Italians. Because again, raised by them, so I have a right to say something. But I always thought it was funny, especially when my oldest was born. And I went to go see, to see family, and they're holding the baby, and they're like smelling the baby, going, "Oh, that's the elixir of life." And I love to point out to these manly macho machismo men, you're just inhaling a baby that has soaked in amniotic fluid for the past 9 months. So there you go. There's your elixir of life.
In a way, they're not wrong. The amniotic fluid is filled with T cells.
Well, yeah, but they're grossed out because anything female related.
Sure.
Once the baby comes out, they don't care about the female parts of it.
No, not at all. So, I get that.
Yeah. So they always used to gross them out. And then I would be like, no, it's the baby. It's the lotion. It's the, no, it's the amniotic fluid.
But they did keep them. And it's important to note that the Benandanti were not a secret. Okay. They were known to their communities. People went to them for healing. They were folk practitioners. Cunning folk is the English equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
They diagnosed illnesses caused by witchcraft, quote unquote witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
They prescribed remedies, and they were respected, even needed. Now, these have direct correlations to a lot of cultures, but for us in particular, it has a lot to do with granny magic.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot to do with the tradition in America in which the supernatural is often mixed with religion.
Yes.
And you may think of yourself as a religious person and not a witch, but you're performing witchcraft.
Yes. Again, my grandmother did that.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. And that is fine. However you need to believe that your craft works for you, then that's how it works for you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's secular. I don't have a God. I don't have a religion attached to it. But I do know what a force is, just like I know electricity can shock you.
So, what's funny is, about what you were saying about people who follow a religion and they don't realize that they're also doing witchy types of things. My assistant, she's from Colombia, and we were talking about like things that you didn't realize like were supernatural without being like me outing myself 100%. And I said, my Nana used to, make simmer pots. And she's like, oh, I love a simmer pot. And I said, and her biggest one was when you move out of a house, you sweep the floors from the front door to the back door, and you leave the broom behind because you don't want to take that energy with you.
Yeah.
And she goes, we do that. I do that. You always do that. And, and this is an extremely religious woman. And I just think that is kind of funny that we do that in different cultures.
But I think that's, for me, and it makes sense because witchcraft is a craft. Mm-hmm. It is not a religion.
No.
You can insert religion into it, any religion you would like.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of your path.
Yeah.
But the craft itself is craft. So you can be a carpenter,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make whatever furniture or, railings you like. And you can be a Christian while doing that.
Yeah.
Or you can be a Satanist while doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be a Buddhist while doing that. You can do these things and have a different faith because it's still just a craft.
Yeah.
It is how you wield a power. So yeah, I can see why everyone, has a different take on this. But
Yeah.
it's still essentially witchcraft. But they won't call it that because in their religion, it would be bad to call it witchcraft. That's considered evil.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just become the taint of that name, which is...
Sorry, I was at the 15-year-old boy who lives in my head thought that was funny.
Okay. Well, taint has several different
I
meanings.
know that, but it was my reaction.
Weird.
I know.
It's usually my thing. So, and how am I playing the straight man in this one?
I
This
don't
seems
know.
weird.
Because I'm loopy. It's been a week and a half
I don't
for me.
like this situation at all. But yeah, so they were respected. They were even needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a shadowy underground cult at all. These are your neighbors.
Yeah.
And people knew who they were, and they were grateful for them right up until the Inquisition.
Nobody suspects the Spanish Inquisition.
And even fewer expect the Italian Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 times a year, the Benandanti went out. Okay, and these 4 occasions corresponded to what the church called the Ember Days, or in Latin and Italian, the Quattro Tempora. And yes, it's very much like the Quattro Fritos.
Queso, something. They don't travel well.
They don't. But Ember Days did travel well, and they were specific days, specific weeks of fasting and prayer scattered through the liturgic calendar.
Okay.
4 times a year, each season, okay? The church had repurposed these periods for older seasonal observances, which is a pattern we see constantly in how Christianity absorbed and redirected pre-existing sacred times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, funny how that works.
Yeah, it's just easier just to take over the thing before you.
Well, I mean, and the reason why they did that was it was easier to convert pagans to Christianity if you're overlapping onto their actual
because
religion.
You're taking it over.
Yeah.
You're literally taking their holiday.
Yeah.
And you're saying, well, now this is this holiday. And even if you observe your holiday, you're actually observing ours.
Yeah, and here's the fun fact for y'all is if you actually do the numbers and you believe that Jesus was a person who actually lived, he was not born in the winter, and he did not die in the spring. There you go.
Okay. So on these nights, the Benandanti said their spirits left their bodies. The body stayed behind, sleeping and completely unwakeable. Like you could not wake them up, couldn't move them, couldn't rouse them.
Kind of like astral projection?
Yes.
Aha.
Very much so. Witnesses, like wives and husbands, confirmed this, telling the Inquisition that they could not wake their sleeping spouse no matter what they tried. One woman said she shook her husband and called his name 10 times and nothing. The spirit, meanwhile, was out in the fields. It was in the fjords. The battles between the Benandanti and the Maledante, the good and evil walkers, were fought with plants. So the Benandanti carried fennel stalks, while the Maledante carried stalks of sorghum. No molasses, just the sorghum. And that's it. No swords, no fire, just plants. And that's it. I like a nice plant-based war.
Okay, I'm sorry, but all I can picture is the fish slapping dance from Monty Python, but done with the plants.
I imagine it's very much like that, but of the soul. So, yeah. But fennel was a protective plant in Italian folk tradition, and it was considered warding and beneficial, whereas sorghum was a plant that was used to make brooms, witches' brooms.
Uh-huh.
So you see where that symbolism is going.
Yep.
If the Benandanti won the battle, the harvest would be good, abundant, and survival was ensured. And if the Maledante won, the crops would fail, sickness and famine would ensue. And so the stakes were absolutely as high as the stakes could possibly be for them, for the people of that culture.
So my question is, how soon after these quote-unquote battles did they determine the success or the failure of the battle? Because what if they say, oh, we won, and then all of a sudden the crops turn to shit?
Well, that's the thing is the battles were always different. They weren't always described the same way, so it's hard to tell on how the individual battles were judged. The male Benandanti tended to describe active combat, traveling in spirit on the backs of animals into the countryside. Suddenly animals are engaged now instead of just plants. And, they were directly battling the Maledante. While as the female Benandanti's accounts are very often different. They're described as attending feasts and processions and sometimes gatherings with a presiding figure. Ginzburg noticed that this gendered difference in testimony had become a point of scholarly discussion. It was a real distinction in the practice and imposed by who was asking the questions. Because inquisitors had very particular ideas about what women did at night gatherings. So I think a lot of those were edited for the benefit of the inquisitors.
Yeah.
So what the women did at night gatherings did not include honorable combat.
Yeah, because, a woman can't pick up a sword, she can't fight.
I didn't stab anybody with that fennel.
Fennel. No, not at all.
So the form of the spirit, or when the spirit left the body, it sometimes took animal form. The records include the Benandanti as describing their spirit leaving as a mouse, a cat, a rabbit, a butterfly. I would suppose an armored butterfly. And it's significant because we're talking about shamanism. And that's something that you mentioned just recently in the notes. Because its shape-shifting is not something that the inquisitors expected. And it's not something they were ready for. They didn't have a category for it. So it was a surprise. The spirit had to return before dawn. If it didn't, if something kept the spirit away too long, the body might not wake up. So a lot like
astral projection.
Astral projection, yes. That was the danger of it. The spirit traveling was a real risk, and it was not just symbolic for them. The first known Inquisition proceedings against the Benandanti began in 1575.
Okay.
And it was a village priest named Don Bartolomeo Sabritza. I'm getting very good at this, reading the phonetic things. Received reports about a man named Paolo Gasperto. There you go, I got it. A self-described Benandanti who was apparently quite open about his identity. And he was going around telling people he could help them identify witchcraft. So, Don,
the other dude.
So I'm not going to keep saying his last name, Sabritza, went to investigate, and what he found confused him so thoroughly that he essentially dropped the case.
Holy shit.
So Gasperto wasn't describing anything that fit the Inquisitor's checklist. He's like, I've got spits up, rotates head. And, he's going through his checklist. He wasn't worshiping the devil.
No.
He wasn't flying to Sabbath. And he wasn't performing dark rituals. He was just claiming to fight witches for the community, for God. Which, honestly, I think that's the best way to be a witch at that time.
Confuse the Inquisition.
Because you're like, oh, no, I'm a holy person. I'm fighting for the good against witches. I'm like, well, witches. Those witches, in general, witches.
Those guys, the guys.
They're in spirit form. You can't see them.
Those guys.
So the case sat untouched for like 5 years, okay? So in 1580, the Inquisitor... I hate this so much. I do this to myself.
You picked one in Italy.
I
And you
did.
Struggle bus.
This is worse.
Oh, my Lord.
It's Fra Felice da Montefalco. And if I just use the pronunciation.
It is Montefalco.
See, I did it right.
But I can't tell you how you say that.
I did. Fra Felice
Is it Fra or is it supposed to be short for friar?
No, it's Fra.
Fra?
Fra Felice da Montefalco. See, I just say it with the accent. It sounds great.
Montefalco.
Picked it back up.
Okay.
We got all that to say picked it back up. The Inquisition had a template, okay? It developed and refined and codified over decades of witch trials across Europe. Witches flew out at night. Check. Witches gathered. Check.
Mm-hmm.
Witches interacted with supernatural figures.
Mm-hmm.
Check. Witches threatened crops and livestock. Check. I think I'd be a good inquisitor because I know how to check things on a list.
Here's the thing. I actually don't know any witches who fuck with people's livestock.
That's true. They like cows.
I like a big little moo. I want to go hug a moo.
You go out there and you pet them. You love on them. You would never hurt one.
No.
It's crazy. So the Benandanti fit some of those boxes, and that made them dangerous, not because they were evil, but because they were unauthorized. Because the one thing you can't do with the church is skip the line.
Oh, yeah, you can't do anything.
No inquisitor wants you being more powerful than them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why only certain people can perform exorcisms.
Sure.
Even though literally it tells you how to do it in the Bible.
Yeah, any supernatural power that didn't come through the church was by definition suspect. The idea that God might be operating through illiterate peasant farmers outside of any priestly hierarchy was frankly completely unacceptable.
Oh, and again, that's the thing is the common people were definitely illiterate. And then it got to the point where even some of the priests couldn't even read the texts that they were preaching. And that's when Christianity started getting really hokey and people, Martin Luther stepped in.
Well, Montefalco summoned Gasperto. I'm getting good at this. And then Meduco. And he began systematically trying to get them to say the word devil.
Oh, my Lord.
That is the trick. You just got to get them to say devil.
Okay, so when you talk to that dude with the red skin and the horns, what's his name again? Satan. No, I mean, so the other guy, you mean Lucifer?
What's this a photo of?
You mean Lucifer? No. I can't think of the word. It's like me with the kids.
And that's what Gasperto and Meduco kept saying in these interrogations again and again. Stubbornly, bravely, we were out for God. Okay? And angels call us, and we fight for the harvest, for the community. We are not witches. We are the opposite of witches. I promise you, we accept no witches here. And Montefalco said,
Monty.
I said Montefalco said, no, you couldn't. He needed them to fit the template, so he kept pushing at them. And eventually, this is the moment that Ginzburg finds out, almost unbearable to the document, that Gasperto began to crack. He started saying, maybe the angel was actually the devil.
Lucifer was an angel.
Maybe he had been deceived. Maybe what he thought was righteous was actually satanic. And Meduco followed. Both of them, under enough pressure, began to recant the very identity they built their lives around. It wasn't just their belief being attacked, it was their identity was being attacked. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
They were ultimately sentenced for heresy. The precise punishments were not fully recorded, but they were condemned and eventually released, having confessed being duped by the devil into a practice they had believed to be holy. And that process repeated. So you can see what's happening here. They've eroded stalwart Benandanti.
Mm-hmm.
And that started the avalanche of events. So not just with Gisberto and Meduco, that was 1580 to 1581. The trials of the Benandanti continued across Friuli for nearly a century. So the surviving records show 80 individual cases between 1575 and 1675. And you can watch, case by case, as the Inquisition's framing slowly wins. This is propaganda at its most insidious. It is using its own people, the people who believed they were the Benandanti, who recanted and went back to their homes and then were outing other Benandanti who then had to recant as well.
Yes.
It was starting this avalanche of identity erasure. So the early Benandanti, they fought back. And the later ones just, well, they confessed to witchcraft from the start. So there's no like resisting what is happening because it is happening. The tradition had been absorbed into the very thing it claimed to oppose. So let's talk about how any of this survived being known at all, because the answer is pretty remarkable. In the 1960s, a young Italian historian named Carlo Ginzburg.
Which Ginzburg is funny as it's not a very Italian name.
Yeah, I don't know how Italian he is, but he was doing research in the Archiepiscopal Archives of Udine, a city in Friuli. He was not looking for the Benandanti at all. He was looking at Inquisition records in a more broader aspect. And he opened a box that had not been seriously examined by any historians before him. It's kind of that, I found a dinosaur bone in this shelf that's been here for years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is a whole new dinosaur genus. It's like, well, no one looked at it.
Someone is going to find the Ark of the Covenant someday.
Right. He just opened the right box. Inside were the trial records, and there were hundreds of pages of interrogations, testimonies, confessions, all relating to this folk tradition that by the 20th century had completely vanished.
Mm-hmm.
Even the term Benandanti had simply become a synonym for witch in local usage. So their own people, their own ancestors.
Yeah.
Or ancestors?
Family? No. Kin? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll say their own kin. It's not ancestors. It's the other way.
Mm.
They're the ones who just assumed it was witches. So they lost Benandanti forever. And no one remembered what it originally meant at all. Historian John Martin, decidedly not Italian, I guess, would later describe this as, well, I guess Martin is Italian. It's just not got the flair. Would later describe this as the kind of discovery most historians only dream of. And Ginzburg understood immediately what he had. It was evidence of a belief system so remote from official European culture that the men interrogating it literally couldn't understand what they were being told. It was the Inquisitors' confusion that was actually documented in the records. They kept coming back. They kept asking. And they kept trying to force the answers into familiar shapes. Hence it's the devil. Say the devil. Just say the devil. If you tell me the devil, I can let you go home.
Yeah.
In 1966, Ginzburg published his findings in Italian under the title I Benandanti, or E Benandanti, actually. It's the I is an E sound.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't translated into English until 1983. We know that year because it was in the 80s. Published as the Night Battles, Witchcraft and Agrarian Cults in the 16th and 17th centuries. The book changed the field of early modern history. Ginzburg's core argument was this, that the Benandanti were not witches. They were not a heretical sect. They were members of what appeared to be a very old agrarian fertility cult. possibly pre-Christian in its origins, that had survived into the 16th century with a thin Christian veneer and a completely coherent internal logic.
Okay.
It made sense for them. The Christian framing, the angel, the service to God, may have developed genuinely over time as the tradition adopted to its environment.
Okay.
So, you have, the Christian faith, much like we have in Appalachia,
Mm-hmm.
and you adapt your craft to fit the religion you believe in or the religion that's oppressing you.
Okay, yeah.
Whether or not you think they're oppressing you, if it's a forced religion, it's oppressing you.
Mm-hmm.
If it's indoctrination, it's oppressing you.
Okay.
So for me, that's what it sounds like.
Oh, no, definitely.
They were Christians who carried older practices inside their Christianity. It was arguably how most of European religion worked anyway. The Inquisition didn't destroy paganism that was hiding in the hills. It destroyed something far more interesting, which was a living, adapting folk belief that had made peace with both worlds. They'd struck a really good balance in their lives.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they could just keep going until, of course,
The Inquisition.
right. And this is where the rabbit hole opens up and the floor kind of disappears. Because Ginzburg wasn't satisfied with documenting the Benandanti as a regional Friulian oddity. He wanted to know where it came from. And when he looked at similar traditions across Europe, he found something unsettling in the best possible way. There were analogs everywhere. The nocturnal spirit processions described by the Benandanti bear striking similarities to a much older and far more widespread tradition, the wild hunt.
I was going to say the wild hunt.
Across the Germanic, Slavic, and Nordic folklore, the wild hunt is a nighttime procession of spirits often led by a divine or semi-divine figure, moving through the darkness of winter and transitional seasons. Even in modern culture, we have urban fantasy novels that depict the wild hunt. We have video games which depict the wild hunt in Witcher 3, which is part of the Nordic folklore.
Mm-hmm.
So it was feared, okay? It was precipitous that you don't want to be outside when it passed. You might follow it, and if you did, you might gain power. But you don't want to be the prey.
No.
You want to be the hunter. In Alpine traditions, this figure was sometimes called the Percata. Sometimes it was Holda, and sometimes Abadina. Boy, these words are going to get me. In Italian context, she appeared as Diana Herodias. The church had actually addressed this tradition as far back as the 10th century in a document called Canon Episcopi, which told bishops to correct foolish women who believed they flew out at night with Diana. The church said it was illusion. The women said it was real. Ginzburg placed the Benandanti within this much larger complex of traditions. From Alsace to Hesse, from Bavaria to Switzerland, he found groups of people between the 14th and 16th centuries claiming to go out in spirit processions during specific seasons. The Ember seasons, incidentally, to participate in gatherings, battles, or feasts connected to the fertility of the earth.
That makes sense.
So he just found a much larger parallel. I was in the Baltic in 1692, a century after the peak of the Benandanti trials. A man named Tees of Kaltenbrunn was tried in Livonia, which is modern Latvia. He was over 80 years old, and he told his inquisitors something that would have been completely familiar to Paolo Gasparito 100 years earlier and 1,000 miles away. He said he was a werewolf.
Okay.
Yeah. And he said werewolves in his tradition were the hounds of God. They pee on things.
That's mine.
They
That's
dig
mine.
things up.
That's mine.
That's right. They went to hell 3 times a year to fight the devil and retrieve stolen crops. No hands. If they won, the harvest would be good. He was not ashamed. He was proud, and he argued with the court. He was old enough and apparently formidable enough that the court seemed generally uncertain what to do with him. So the Friulian fennel versus Livonian hellhounds, 2 different traditions in 2 different languages, separated by a century and the length of Europe. And the core structure is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit flight on liminal nights, battle against evil, and crops in the balance. I think Ginzburg went further. In his 1989 follow-up, Escates Deciphering the Witch's Sabbath, he argued, and this is the contested but deeply compelling part, that all of these traditions, including the witch's Sabbath itself as the church defined it, were distortions of something real. A pan-European shamanistic substrate, not shamanism in the strict anthropological sense defined by Siberian or Central Asian practice, but a broadly similar pattern. Spirit flight, animal transformation, interaction with the dead, seasonal fertility battles, seasonal distress, I don't know.
Seasonal depression.
That's right. A specialist intermediary between the human and spirit world. And the critics push back. So many of the historians said the evidence for a unified pre-Christian tradition was too thin. That Ginzburg was connecting dots that might not belong to the same picture. And that debate's ongoing. What cannot be disputed is the raw fact of the similarities across the geography and centuries, and the testimonies of people who could not possibly have compared notes.
Mm-hmm.
The animal forms, like the mice, the butterflies, the cats, and rabbits, were worth lingering on. These are not the terrifying animal transformations of werewolf horror. They're small, soft, little cute things. Things that move between spaces. Things that pass through the walls and under doors and across fields unseen.
Mm-hmm.
If you were designing a spirit form for a creature that needed to travel undetected across the night countryside to do invisible battle, you probably couldn't do better than a mouse.
Just got to watch out for those owls.
It's true. Spirit owls.
Mm-hmm.
This specificity, the fact that these animal forms make sense for the work being done, suggests something more than random superstition. It suggested a coherent cosmology. A tradition with internal rules that were actually thought through.
Mm-hmm.
There are rules to this game. So by the end of the 17th century, the Benandanti tradition, as it had originally existed, was effectively dead. The Inquisition hadn't burned it out of existence like it did many others. There are very few recorded executions that are directly tied to the Benandanti trials. It had done something more thorough and more insidious. It had redefined it. It had done something by the 18th and 19th century, redefining what Benandanti meant and made it into witch in the local dialect. So the original meaning of Benandanti was gone. And that's how complete the erasure was. The very term that the good walkers had used to name their heroism had been turned into the name of the thing that they fought.
Yeah.
And then Carlo Ginzburg opened that archive box. And for the first time in nearly 300 years, we could hear what they actually said. Not through the church's summary, not through the eventual confessions wrung out of them, but in the early records where they were still themselves and still certain of who they were and what they were doing.
Did the Italian Inquisition use the same torture as the Spanish Inquisition to get the information from them?
I have a sense that in some cases they did. I don't think they were holding anything back. But I think against people they didn't know what to do with, they were a lot more gentle.
Yeah.
And I say gentle, and it's not truly gentle, because if you're erasing someone's identity, that's pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
They essentially did what the white Christian nationalists are doing right now, is using conversion therapy to force you to believe you're something you're not.
Yeah, that's about right.
The Benandanti surface in popular culture now and then. We have the Netflix series, Luna Nera, features them, though in very different framing, more antagonistic than the historical record suggests. There are references in various folklore and fantasy contexts, but honestly, I don't think any fictional version captures what makes the real story so affecting. Which is this: here were people who had complete, coherent, deeply felt framework for understanding the world and their place in it. And that framework said, you are born marked. You have a responsibility to your community. 4 times a year, you carry a bundle of fennel into the spirit world and you fight. And if you fight well enough, your neighbors will eat this winter. That's not nothing. That's a life's purpose.
Yeah.
That's a community. That's a community based upon your actions, where you feel like you have some say in the world around you. And that was ripped from them. It wasn't just ripped from them. It wasn't just taken from them. They made you say the words.
When you have to say something that goes against everything you believe in, after a while, you begin to believe it.
Yeah. And, because we are in the Appalachians, we have to, like I keep coming back to, this region is full of the exact kind of folk belief that the Benandanti represent.
Mm-hmm.
They're the cunning folk, the root doctors, people born with a call who were said to have a second sight, witch finders, the idea that certain people are born into a role of protection for their community. Most of the people who came to Appalachia came from the British Isles, Scotland, and Germany, not Italy. But the deep structure that born marked, called to a night world role, healer who fights witches, that structure appears pretty much everywhere. Humans have tried to explain why some people sense things, others can't, and why the crops fail. And while the Benandanti are Italian, the archetype is older than any nation. So that's the Benandanti, the good walkers of Friuli. Born with the call, called to battle, armed with fennel.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, systematically convinced they were the thing they had always fought. They were gaslit, remembered now only because an Italian historian happened to look in the right box. So if you take one thing from this episode, I want it to be this, that the trial records that preserved the Benandanti were not records of evil. They were the records of a system that could not tolerate what it could not categorize. The Benandanti weren't a threat to anyone. They were a local tradition that happened to exist outside the authorized framework, and that was all it took. Ginzburg's book is called The Night Battles in English, and it is 100% worth reading. I'm going to link it in the show notes along with some of the additional resources to the Wild Hunt and the shamanism on European folklore and the broader context of the Inquisition-era witch trials, along with the super long list of things that you found.
Yes. So this has been Between Myth and Belief. If you like what you heard and you have a tale or two you want to share with us, we are more than willing to read some of your stories. And, not just about what we talked about today, but any topic that you might be interested in that relates to the paranormal, basically anything that lives between myth and belief. You can reach out to us through email at our finally redone email, betweenmythandbelief@gmail.com. You can join us on Instagram and Blue Sky at Myth and Belief. And you can check out our other podcast, Cozy Quilt Cinema, and its brand new website, cozyquiltcinema.com. Make sure to like and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts, like where you're listening to us right now. So until next time, my friends, this has been Between Myth and Belief. Bye.
Bye.